You guys hear me okay? The camera's all right? You're good? All right. Good afternoon. Thanks for being here. I'm Matt Clark, Commander of the Major Crimes Division for the Denver Police Department. Here to give you an overview of the incident. Police officer involved shooting that occurred on Friday, June 4th, 2021 at approximately 5:30 p.m. in the 3800 block of North Olive Street in Northeast Denver. This is intended to be a preliminary briefing based upon the information that we've gathered after interviewing numerous witnesses, speaking with the involved officers, and analyzing evidence collected at the scene. Obviously, this investigation is at the early stages, and there may be information I do not have access to or cannot disclose at this point. So that may limit my ability to answer questions. But with that, I'll get started. On Friday, June 4th, 2021, at about 5:30 p.m., Denver police officers were dispatched to the area of Martin Luther King Park, and that's in the area of 38th Avenue and Olive Street in Northeast Denver. The officers were sent there on a report of an individual shooting a firearm into the park. In total, 6 separate 911 calls were received regarding the shots that were fired. Multiple callers reported observing the subject standing near a gray Jeep firing shots into the park. As officers arrived in the area, one of the 911 callers helped direct officers to the east side of the park. The uniform officers arrived in the park within 5 minutes of being dispatched and located the subject on the east end of the park in the 3800 block of Olive Street. At the time, he was leaning into the front side of a gray Jeep and was not completely visible to officers. The officers stopped their marked police vehicles in the 3800 block of Olive Street near 39th Avenue, and this position put them approximately 90 feet away from the subject at the time. Officers began giving the subject direction to show his hands, which the subject ignored. The subject continued leading into the front passenger side of the vehicle for approximately 45 seconds before stepping back from the vehicle. When the subject was in full view to the officers recognized that he had a handgun in his hand. Over the next 30 seconds, the officers continued giving verbal commands in an effort to gain the subject's compliance. During that time, the subject took the handgun that he was holding and placed the barrel of the gun against the side of his head. He then lowered the gun briefly and began walking towards the officers while raising the handgun in the direction of the officers. Given the information regarding the subject previously firing numerous rounds into the park, coupled with the subject's refusal to comply with the clear orders that were given by the officers feared that the subject would fire upon them. In response, 3 Denver officers discharged their weapons multiple times. The subject was struck and fell to the ground. Officers immediately called for an ambulance to respond and worked to secure the subject so medical aid could be rendered. The subject was transported to Denver Health Medical Center, where he was pronounced deceased later that night. Through the investigation, it was determined that 3 Denver officers fired a total of 14 rounds during the incident. The officers used, 2 handguns and 1 rifle were discharged during this incident. At the scene, investigators recovered a .45 caliber semi-automatic handgun, which was the firearm the officers observed the subject holding. Detectives located 24 .45 caliber casings in the area around the subject's vehicle. Additional live ammunition was located both inside and outside the subject's vehicle. There's no evidence that the subject discharged the firearm at the officers. Detectives interviewed multiple witnesses who described witnessing the suspect taking a shooter's stance while discharging the firearm multiple times at people in the park. Specifically, the subject appears to have fired at 2 individuals who were on the northwest corner of 38th and Olive, as well as an individual who was in the middle of the park directly west of the subject. None of these individuals were struck by the subject's gunfire. At the time, there were multiple people in the park. There were numerous people utilizing the tennis courts and frequenting a nearby business there. The subject in this case has been identified as 31-year-old Colton Wagner, C-O-L-T-O-N, Wagner, W-A-G-N-E-R. His date of birth is November 7th of 1989. The officers who responded to this incident were equipped with body-worn cameras, and those cameras captured their interaction with the subject. All officers were wearing Denver police uniforms and driving marked police vehicles. The officers who discharged their weapons are patrol officers assigned to District 2 in Northeast Denver. One officer has been with the department for 6 years, another for 7 years, and the third for 13 years. None of these officers have been involved in a previous police shooting incident. These officers will be on a modified duty assignment during the investigation. The investigation of this critical incident is conducted as part of a multi-agency investigative team, including the Denver District Attorney's Office, and it's monitored by the Office of the Independent Monitor, which is a civilian entity. At this time, we're not looking for anyone else in connection with this incident. However, if anybody has information or video regarding this incident, we'd ask that you contact the Denver Police Department or Crime Stoppers. They can try and answer any questions you may have.
So you said that he fired at 2 individuals in the north and 1 individual directly west of him. Do you believe, is it currently believed that he was targeting those individuals, or they just happened to be there and he was just shooting?
We believe that he was just shooting, that they were not, that there was no prior knowledge between those individuals and the subject, that they just happened to be in the area and he was shooting at them.
I wanted to ask, there's been 5 sort of shootings in less than a month. I know that when officers are involved in this kind of thing, they get placed in modified duty. How many officers are on modified duty out of those 5 shootings?
So you're right. They do go to a modified duty assignment. I'm not certain of that number at this point. I think we can follow up offline on that. But in order to make sure staffing levels remain appropriate and we're able to respond to calls for service and citizens' needs, our resources are reallocated to address that.
So is this impacting staffing, having this many shootings this close to one another?
Fortunately, we're able to move staffing, move officers around from different assignments to cover those vacancies while they go through.
Is this having any impact on overtime?
I'm not certain on that specifically.
And then I know you said that the 3 officers involved in the shooting on June 4th had no prior officer-involved shootings. What about the cops in the other 4 shootings?
I would have to look back at that. I think we discussed that during those press briefings after, but here today I'm not. I want to make sure we're accurate on the information I give you.
Okay. As far as the preliminary investigation, is there any possibility there was drug use there? Was the suspect was intoxicated? Are there any substance or anything?
So we're still looking into that, and we'll need to wait for the results of a toxicology report for any substance usage.
Was this individual known to your department beforehand for any incident?
It does not appear we've had any prior interactions with this individual.
And then do you guys have an estimate of how many people were actually in the park's vicinity at the time of the shooting?
We know there was, we can account for at least 8 specifically. There may have been other people there. We know that there was multiple people playing tennis back and forth on the multiple tennis courts that are on the north side of the park. And then there was a nearby business on the other side of Olive that was occupied as well.
Any indication of why this particular park?
No, no indication of why the particular park.
Thank you.
Thank you.